Good evening, everyone. Today we have a special guest, Sarah, who has a truly harrowing story to share with us. Sarah, thank you for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself and telling us where this all began?
Good evening. My name is Sarah, and I live in a small, cozy house in the suburbs. A few months ago, I decided to host a small gathering for some close friends. It was supposed to be a fun and relaxing evening, but it turned into something far more terrifying.
We're here to listen, Sarah. Please take your time and share your story with us.
The evening was a Friday, and the weather was perfect, mild and clear. My house is a two-story modern home with a large living room, a dining area, and a spacious backyard. I invited 6 of my closest friends: Mark, my best friend since college; Lily, my colleague; Tom, Lily's husband; Jane, my neighbor; and Alex and Sarah, a couple I had met through a mutual friend. The house was decorated with some candles and fresh flowers, and I had prepared a few appetizers and drinks. The gathering started off well. Everyone arrived on time, and we were all having a great time. We chatted, laughed, and enjoyed the food and drinks. The atmosphere was warm and friendly, and I was enjoying the company of my friends. But then, about an hour into the party, I noticed something strange. There was a man standing in the shadows of the living room, near the corner by the bookshelf. He was tall, with a lean build. He was dressed in a dark suit, and his face was partially hidden in the shadows. I couldn't see his features clearly, but I could feel his presence. He didn't seem to be interacting with anyone, and no one else seemed to notice him. It was as if he was invisible to everyone except me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about him felt off, almost otherworldly. I tried to shake off the feeling and focus on the party, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. I decided to confront him, but every time I tried to approach him, he would move further into the shadows. I tried to tell Mark about the man, but he just laughed it off, saying I was probably just seeing things. "Sarah, you're probably just stressed or imagining things," he said, patting me on the back. I mentioned it to Lily and Tom, but they also dismissed it, saying I was probably just stressed or imagining things. Even Jane, who is usually very perceptive, didn't believe me. They all thought I was being paranoid. I felt isolated and frustrated. I knew what I had seen, but no one believed me. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I was losing my mind. But the feeling of unease didn't go away. The man in the shadows continued to linger, and I could feel his eyes on me throughout the evening. As the evening progressed, the man in the shadows became more and more noticeable to me. He would move from one corner to another, always staying just out of reach. I tried to keep an eye on him, but it was difficult with everyone else around. I felt like I was being watched, and it made me incredibly uneasy. At one point, I heard a faint whispering, like the murmur of distant voices. It was coming from the direction of the man in the shadows. I also noticed that the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and a cold draft seemed to come from nowhere. The air felt heavy, and the atmosphere became tense. My friends didn't seem to notice anything unusual. They were all having a good time, and the conversation was lively. I tried to mention the temperature drop and the whispering, but they just shrugged it off, saying it was probably just the air conditioning. "It's probably just the AC," Mark said, adjusting the thermostat. I decided to try and confront the man again. I excused myself from the group and walked over to the corner where he had been standing. But when I got there, he was gone. I looked around the room, but I couldn't find him anywhere. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. I started to feel a growing sense of dread. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I tried to stay calm and enjoy the rest of the party, but my mind was racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that the man in the shadows was still there, watching me. The party started to wind down around midnight. My friends said their goodbyes and left, and I was left alone in the house. I felt a sense of relief that the party was over, but the unease didn't go away. I checked all the windows and doors to make sure they were locked, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As I was cleaning up the living room, I saw him standing in the same corner where he had been earlier. He was still partially hidden in the shadows, but this time I could see his face more clearly. His eyes were hollow and filled with a strange, otherworldly light. He looked at me, and I could feel his gaze piercing through me. I was terrified. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to call out to him, but no sound came out. He took a step towards me, and I felt a surge of cold energy. I tried to run, but my legs felt like lead. He reached out his hand, and I felt a cold, tingling sensation as his fingers touched my arm. I tried to break free, but his grip was strong. He pulled me closer, and I could feel his breath on my neck. It was icy cold, and it sent shivers down my spine. I closed my eyes, hoping it was all just a nightmare, but when I opened them, he was still there. He whispered in my ear, "You can't escape me." His voice was low and raspy, and it sent a wave of fear through me. I tried to scream, but my voice was caught in my throat. He continued to pull me towards him, and I felt myself being drawn into the shadows. I felt a sense of helplessness and despair. I knew I was in danger, but I couldn't do anything to stop it. The shadows around us grew darker, and the air became colder. I could feel myself being pulled deeper into the darkness, and I knew I was not going to make it out alive. The man's face, his hollow eyes staring into mine, was the last thing I saw. He smiled, and I felt a cold, tingling sensation as he took me with him into the darkness. I tried to resist, but it was too late. The world around me faded to black, and I was gone. The next morning, my friends called to check on me. They were worried because I hadn't answered their calls or messages. When they came over, they found the house empty. The party had left the house in perfect order, but I was nowhere to be found. They called the police, and a search was conducted, but there was no trace of me. My disappearance became a mystery. The police found no evidence of a break-in or any signs of struggle. The only clue was the faint whispering that some of my friends claimed to have heard, but it was dismissed as their imagination. No one believed that the man in the shadows had anything to do with my disappearance. I was never found. My family and friends were left to wonder what had happened to me. Some believed I had run away, while others thought I had met with an accident. But the truth is, I was taken by the man in the shadows. He was not from this world, and he had come for me. I know it sounds unbelievable, but it is the truth. That night, I was taken by an otherworldly entity, and I have not been seen since. I hope my story can serve as a warning to others. Sometimes, the things that go bump in the night are not just our imagination. They are real, and they can be dangerous. The days that followed my disappearance were a blur for my friends and family. My parents were devastated, and they couldn't understand why I would just vanish without a trace. They searched every corner of the house, every room, and every nook, but there was no sign of me. My room was left exactly as it was, with my clothes neatly folded and my books on the shelves. My friends were equally confused and worried. They had all left the party feeling like it had been a great evening, and they couldn't fathom what could have happened to me. Mark, in particular, felt guilty for not taking my concerns more seriously. He replayed the evening in his mind, trying to remember if he had missed any signs, any hints that something was wrong. The police investigation was thorough but fruitless. They questioned everyone who had been at the party, but no one had seen or heard anything unusual. The only consistent detail was the feeling of cold and the faint whispering that a few of my friends had mentioned. However, without any physical evidence, the police had no leads. My disappearance made the news, and for a while, it was a topic of discussion in the community. People speculated about what could have happened, but as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the story faded from the headlines. My friends and family continued to search, but the trail grew colder. My parents hired private investigators and they scoured the area, looking for any clues. They even consulted with paranormal experts, hoping to find some explanation for my disappearance. But no one could provide any answers. The man in the shadows remained a mystery, and I was gone without a trace. The house where the party took place was eventually sold, and the new owners never knew the dark history that it held. The living room, where I last saw the man in the shadows, was repainted and redecorated, but the memories of that night lingered. My friends and family would sometimes drive by, wondering if I was still there, watching from the shadows. I know it sounds like a story from a horror movie, but it is my reality. I was taken by something that defies explanation, and I have not been seen since. I hope my story serves as a warning to others. Sometimes, the things that go bump in the night are not just our imagination. They are real, and they can be dangerous.
Sarah, thank you for sharing your harrowing experience with us. It's a chilling reminder of the unseen forces that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Your story will surely make people more aware and cautious.
Thank you for listening. I hope my story can help others be more aware and cautious in situations like this.